I'd like to start with a bit of an intro. If you could tell us a bit about yourself, kind of what you do now, but perhaps a bit about what you were doing before Jobylon as well.
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Alex. My background is I'm a licensed psychologist. So that's my trade, but I've never been in clinical psychology. I've always been in organizational psychology and started my career within the assessment industry. So working a lot with personality tests and problem-solving type of tests used in recruitment for selection purposes. And I worked there for a long time, both as a product developer, but also as a customer success manager and consultant. And then I moved on to create my own company, which is an AI startup focusing on how we can make the interview much better in the recruitment process. Because I found that there was one place in the recruitment process that people really struggled to really deliver was in the interview. You could have really good recruitment process all the way up until the interview. Then people tend to fail, asking the wrong questions, not being structured. So we wanted to create this tool that could really elevate your interview game, essentially. Transcribing, suggesting good questions, and so on. And then I've been briefly a CEO for a small recruitment agency company. And then now I joined Jobylon as the CPO. So I'm in charge of the product vision and execution on the product vision that we have, which is super exciting, to be honest.
So very much a subject matter expert rather than just a tech person with an idea.
Maybe, I hope so.
Excellent. And is there anything you'd like to sort of call out about what Jobylon's been working on at the minute that you'd like kind of people to know about?
Yeah, sure. I mean, what we've really been focusing as of lately is to enhancing our core and expanding our offering in terms of what we want to do is expand. Like, if you look at the candidate journey, it starts quite, early. It doesn't start with the ATS. That's quite late. Then a person has said, oh, I want to apply for this job. They press that button. They made a decision to go into the ATS and then go through the recruitment process, right? But there's a long, path before that, which is about awareness, getting to know a company, and going like, oh, that sounds like a cool place to work. Maybe seeing an ad, maybe seeing stuff on the internet or like seeing stuff. And then you go like, oh, that might be a place I would want to work. And we want to sort of own a bigger part of that journey. So we're focusing now on how can we open up our funnel to get more candidates into the ATS by having people subscribe to newsletters, being able to nurture candidates over a process of time. So when the need comes up, we can activate that candidate pool and then get them into the recruitment process in our ATS system.
Great. Thank you. That's yes, I think you're absolutely right. It's very much we can become obsessed with candidates once they're in process because there's something we can tangibly kind of control and manage. But yes, there's a whole kind of messy area beforehand.
Oh my God, there is. It's so much. And that's hard, not as tangible, right? Because it's like, how strong is our brand and where do we get candidates? Different areas could be, online, but it could also be in live events. It could be webinars. Like, how can we get candidates getting aware of us as a company as well? So
yes, fascinating space. So what I'd like to do today is spend a bit of time looking at the kind of build versus buy decisions, which, as a CPO, you'll be making on a regular basis. And I'd like to go straight into where you had a kind of build versus buy decision and it went wrong. How it didn't go as planned and kind of what were your expectations going in, what actually happened, and kind of what did you learn through that process?
No, sure. I mean, as you say, this is something that pops up all the time. I had a discussion just before this session about that specific thing, actually, about should we build this ourselves or should we actually buy this? And honestly, I think a lot of times it boils down to a few things. But when it comes to this, where it didn't go well, I don't want to, I found this one hard because I don't want to mention specific names. So if it's okay, I might be a little bit more area about where it went wrong. And maybe that could still be a really good decision. If that's okay, because I don't want to point fingers.
Absolutely fine. Whatever you're comfortable with. It's really, I guess it's, what I'm interested in is as concrete as possible to make it kind of real for people. But I also understand commercial confidentiality and that kind of thing. Absolutely.
Oh, and I think I can definitely add some context there because we've definitely made, I wouldn't say mistakes. We've made a lot of learnings along the way by doing things and buying versus building. So one thing that we've learned the hard way is that you really need to test out the system that you want to, buy or get into your system. You make sure that it really fits into your system. Does this fit into the vision of your product, and will it actually work in the product? There's two different things about looking at a demo, seeing it working within their constraints or how that system works, and compare it to, working within our system. Will that actually work for our use cases, for our users, and how different they are? That has been a very interesting and I mean, it's a very simple learning, but it's been very clear that that's something that we need to get even better at before. We need to, vet these potential partners and before we just integrate them or white label them or whatever we want to do with them. Because we found ourselves in a situation where it's like they make updates, which then we need to make sure that we can keep up in the platform. And then you're like, okay, oh shit, that happened. Then we need to put that into our roadmap. And then that can become a little bit like, oh, we can also be slaves to their roadmap, has been a situation as well. It's like, we need a specific feature or something very specific. And they go like, yeah, we can do that in 4 or 6 months. And we go, oh, there's an issue. You don't have the same amount of control always, which can be difficult, especially if you have, as we have very opinionated customers. They have a lot of buy-in and they're quite vocal about what they need, which I think is fantastic, but also puts in a position where we need to be quite agile and quite fast. And when you're not able to affect those parts yourself, that can be quite tricky. And we found ourselves in situations where, we've had to reconsider how we approach these type of situations, actually.
So how have you I guess, what was the point you realized that you made the wrong call, either building yourself or buying something in? And how did you unpick that?
Honestly, like when we started, so in this specific situation was we white labeled a solution. Essentially, we wanted it to really feel native to our product. We wanted the feeling to be that you are in Jobylon, and then you go to this page and you're still in Jobylon, but actually it is a different provider that we have in the system. And we realized quite early on, to be honest, if it's always hindsight is 2020. It's like it doesn't feel like Jobylon. You could really tell, even though there was no sign, same font and everything, but the way it worked and how things loaded and how it felt, and people were like, "That's a bit weird." Like they could feel like something was off, almost like an uncanny valley situation going on in the system. And I that was one of those realizations like, we probably should have thought a little bit more about the way we integrated this. How did we think about the white labeling? What are the options? And it also comes down to like technical decisions, or, using APIs or widgets, or like, what do you use to white label that solution? And there's many different ways of doing that. And I think that also is something that you need to consider. Like, how can you get this product into your system? So in this, it was just like the look and feel definitely was off. And, same thing there. We had a very concrete situation where a customer came back and like, hey, this is not working, because the user flow that they had built, it really didn't fit our ICP, to be honest. It's a great system, but our ICP is high volume recruitment situations. And the system wasn't really tailored to that. And you could tell when I start using it from that perspective.
So was that fixed by, using APIs that they exposed, so you built your own UI, or did you end up swapping the solution out completely?
No, in this case, we actually, we couldn't, every time we do this, we want to go in it with a partnership situation. Like same with you, with Chronify, we feel like really close with you. We feel like we can go into customer meetings with you to help people, adopt. And I think that's very important when choosing whether to build and buy. You should feel, at least that's my very strong opinion, is that it should be someone that you trust, that you want to see. You're doing a very radical decision, right? You're simply taking something and putting it in. And, some people might say like, oh, it's just a transactional thing. I personally don't think so. I think a partnership is so much more valuable. Like going forward, it's always nice to be able to have a conversation and being able to reach out and like that. In this case, we could solve it quite nicely just by talking to them and making sure that we can make updates. But once again, we had to say, can this be updated? And it was mainly like the API calls that we could, so we could do different ones and expose more data. And, the whole flow was a bit changed as a result of that.
It's interesting because do you think good. White labeling is seen as the kind of, oh, we'll just white label. That's the kind of almost like the business answer to these things. And you kind of, I have this kind of personal sort of concern around that uncanny valley where, yes, you can make things kind of look the same, but it just makes the user uncomfortable. So do you have a view do you think white labeling is ever really the right answer? Or is it user service, either commit to their UI or commit to building your own UI and use their APIs?
It's a great question. I mean, I would say from our perspective, I do strongly believe that white labeling is a solid solution, but I think you need to be aware of the consequences and sort of both the pros and the cons of it. Because sometimes it's like, I think we can take Chronify as a good example. Scheduling as a thing is very complicated. If you talk to 100 different customers, they're going to have very different views on what scheduling should be. Group interviews, and it should be like, this person needs to be in the interviews. These three are optional, but it can maximum be 2 people. And when you go into it, I go like, oh, that is complicated. And for us to even reconsider all of those thousands of edge cases, like, no, that would take us. I mean, you've built a company focusing on that specific problem. For us to even attempt that, I think is silly, to be honest. Then we would become Chronify 2.0. I don't know, like that's what we would spend our time doing. But you're thinking about this 24/7, right? This is what you're doing all the time, fixing a very real, very difficult problem for users. So in that case, I think it makes so much sense to go for more of a white labeling type of solution, where it's like it's ours. We say it's our scheduling function, our self-scheduling function. Here it is. It's based on Chronify, but we don't really expose it. We don't really say that. And it works, really, really well, and it really elevates what we can bring to our customers. That's super important. But I think it boils down to that decision, because you can also go the partnership route, right? Where you make more of an integration, and we do that as well. So we have, assessment providers. We're not going to build a problem-solving test or personality test. We rather use a partner for that. And then we make sure that the integration is super nice. So all the data that we can expose in our system is the same information you want to have in the assessment system. So that depends. But sometimes you have like core things where the user needs to be in our system, but there's a lot of UI that needs to be exposed. Like it can't just be one button. You need to be configuration. Then I do still believe like white labeling is a very good option. Not be aware of the consequences, which we've been, and I still think it was the correct decisions, even though the look and feel can be a bit uncanny valley.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's a topic I spend a lot of time thinking about, and because what we talked about very much is a kind of product and engineering type lens through which to look at the buy versus build. How about the rest of the organization? I'm thinking more like CFO or sales or whoever.
Definitely.
How do you think about it in those terms? How do you kind of make the case either way?
Oh, yeah, I mean, we have a very sort of tight team, so we talk to each other a lot about all of these things. So it depends, of course, of the size. Sometimes it's a smaller thing, and they call we can just go and buy this on our own. We don't have to involve that many people if it's a smaller cost or whatever. But actually, I would say that the commercial team at Jobylon is quite involved in these type of discussions, because for them, it could also be an opportunity for them to upsell. So if we integrate or buy a solution that we put into our system, that can be something that they can use in a sales argument. Like, well, we have this, and it works like that. And sometimes it can also be like region-specific requirements. Like when we go into new markets, we need a type of integration, and it needs to be like this. And for us to build that would be very difficult for us. So take job boards, for instance. Like for us to integrate to specific job boards in different countries, then we have to have, one integration to each job board. Imagine that. Like, and then
yes.
they go like, we changed our API. And I'm like, oh no. And then, like, you're going to be like the Golden Gate Bridge, right? As soon as you painted it, you need to repaint it. Terrible situation to be in. So then it's much better to use like a partner that they work on those. They build those, they make sure that the job boards are updated and everything is working. And then we integrate towards them and make it a nice solution. Like as an example, right, of how that can work. then it is also very much a commercial aspect of that, because they're like, we need this job board. And then for us then to build that versus using a platform that cannot just connect us to one job board, but connect us to 100, then the case becomes easy, right? And sometimes I can also just bench it towards the opportunity cost internally. So what would it take us to build this ourselves? It's like, this would take us 6 weeks. We have the cost of the developer doing it, but we also have the opportunity cost of what we're not building as a result of building this versus buying it. And sometimes that it's so much cheaper and better to just buy something in that case.
Does the kind of, how keenly do you think about the ongoing maintenance of these services? We've talked a little bit about kind of API changes and the like, but how important is that or in your decision-making process?
I mean, we had this discussion this morning because we were looking at exactly this, like not a big thing, but like a newsletter builder or whatever. And maybe we don't have to, we were looking at a tool and we just had this discussion. And it was interesting because the option, they had really interesting ways of buying the product. So you can buy it for one-time fee, but then you got the current version of it. So they're going to update it. So I was like, that's interesting. But then they had like a different pricing model where it's like, it was cheaper, but then you got the ongoing updates, but you had to pay for them. Like, it was really interesting to see how people were trying to, monetize it. And I think it made sense. So you bought the version 4, then you can upgrade to version 5 when that one came. But it was interesting. I thought it was quite transparent of them and quite nice, because then you're faced with that decision immediately, like the one you were saying about upkeep, because then you will know that there will come a version 5. We are aware of that, but then we can make that decision on our own when we need to upgrade. So, I mean, honestly, I think that's every engineer's or CPO or CTO's, constant bane of their existence. Technical debt, upkeep, maintenance, and all of these things.
Yes, and I think it's that you mentioned before about being a slave to someone else's roadmap. And so I like that phrase. That sounds like they're giving you optionality as to when you upgrade, rather, so you can carry on using the service. I think with kind of APIs, backward compatibility, deprecation of APIs, feels like, especially when you're kind of using SaaS services. Have you been in a situation where a vendor has said, right, we've got this one API and that you're using, and we're deprecating it.
Oh yeah,
you need to migrate.
We have that situation now going on. I'm not entirely sure about the deadline, but they're like, this date, this will not work anymore. So you have until this day to fix it.
No.
It makes it very clear to put it on the roadmap. It's like, we have a deadline. We need to get it done by then, which honestly sometimes can be quite nice, but it is a struggle because we have a lot of integrations. Now we're not talking, build or buy, but we have a lot of integrations with different systems, job boards, but also other systems. And there's a constant sort of discussion about, this one, is depreciated. This one goes down. We need to update, and also input from the vendors. Like, hey, we have these new things. You need to upgrade because we added functionality. And then the customer comes to us like, hey, we want to be able to use this feature. And then we need to put, time and effort into upgrading the integration with the new API calls. But constant worry, constant struggle, always about the prioritization, right? Super hard. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yeah, the opportunity cost, like you say, because when you're migrating, you're not doing something else. And shameless plug here, we're still on version 1 of our API, 10 years on, for that very reason. Yes. We deliberately make our API changes backwardly compatible. So we've never pulled the rug from anyone.
Well, we appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yes. Well, yeah, this is, but I'm an ex-developer, CTO myself. So, I understand the pain. Yeah. Do you have is there a framework you use or a kind of approach, a kind of standard approach you take to build versus buy, or is it kind of very situational?
I mean, it is quite situational. It also depends on our needs at the moment. So at the moment, we're really exploring. Of course, we're exploring AI, and what I'm trying to do. So like, there's two things I always think about: is that is it super close to our IP? Like, should we definitely own this on our own? Like, should this be something that we should, build from ourselves? And it's tied to, I guess, information dense, things like interview transcript or like all of these things. Like, we need to tie it to, are we willing to give away some control over this information, this data, or, slave to the roadmap or whatever? Or do we think that this is so critical for us and our users that we should invest in building it ourselves? Like, those are like, this is almost the first question I ask. And if it's like, no, we need this. If we don't have this, if we don't build this, we're going to have problems long down the road, right? But if it is like, no, actually, it's fine. Like, we're super fine with using someone else, and then we can take that data or we can use that information, whatever it is, and we can still utilize it in a good way without losing control. Then you go into a situation like, okay, then we should maybe look at a partner or buying a system. And then you go out, of course, and look and talk to people. So I talk to, I don't know, like 3 or 4 companies a week, usually, testing, exploring different options, seeing what fits best into our narrative, what fits best with us. But then, of course, it comes down to like a commercial aspect. Like, if there's a way to monetize it from our end as well, like we could do a rev share or whatever. Like, there's a lot of ways to look at these things. It doesn't necessarily have to be like just buying. It can actually be, a long-term partnership where we white label a solution, we sell it, they get part of the cost. That's also a solution to look at. And then, of course, I need to involve, partnerships. I need to involve the commercial side. So it does depend on what we're talking about. If it's just a simple, system that we can buy for a relatively cheap price and there's no real big consequences, then it's easy. But when it comes to like, okay, who should we actually tie to ourselves very closely because it's going to be a very core part of the system, then of course we need to do a lot of going through and making sure that it's a vendor, it's a partner that we believe in, and that we can see a future together with, essentially.
Okay, thank you. You mentioned AI.
Did I?
I understand it's quite popular. I don't know. Has this kind of looking at kind of incorporating, LLMs, machine learning, whatever kind of AI flavor you're looking at, has that provided any kind of, has that changed the build versus buy decision from a kind of velocity, capability, I don't know, data sovereignty?
Yeah, 100%. Our ICP is, enterprise companies. They are very worried about, like, they focus on compliance, security, stability, and all these kind of things, which means then when you have a technology like AI and LLMs and whatever, it is super important that we adhere to those type of demands that they have. So we have the EU AI Act coming along. So when I'm vetting partners, I need to make sure that it's explainable. Like, if there's a summary that the LLM does or whatever, I need to make sure that is going to be explained so we can provide this to the candidates. Like, we have a summary of you. The reason it gave the summary is because A, B, and C, especially if there's a score involved as well, which, could very well be the case. Like, there needs to be like a system to describe why that score was made for that specific candidate. And so I put a lot more pressure on those type of systems that use AI, because I'm not going to ship anything into our product without making sure that I feel 100% comfortable that it actually would work for our customers and that it adheres to the AI Act. So I think I've been quite annoying with some of the partners I've been discussing. I'm like, okay, what's your, I don't know, like, have you done a discriminatory analysis on your data? Most people have. People are actually, a lot of the partners, they do a really good job. So I think people are realizing just how important it is to have your stuff straight when it comes to AI. So, but yeah, it's more complicated, yes.
And really, this is around the kind of, if you like, the jeopardy. Because to summarize, I think I've summarized, I think it sounds like if you're dealing with deterministic software, then it's very clear what's the decision process, what's happening, what's not happening. As soon as you move into kind of more probabilistic software, then it's much hard. This explanation is super important. It's because actually the outcome's going to influence a hiring decision.
Yeah, and it's someone's life at the end of the day. Like, about getting that salary to pay for your mortgage. Like, we can't take it lightly.
Is there anything else you've learned about as you've started to incorporate kind of AI features into your applications? Is there anything else you've learned about how to assess them that would be, you think people should know?
No, but I mean, really making sure you can get that documentation and asking these questions. And also going back to what I said earlier in the talk about really test out the system, like try out the edge cases. So if you're looking for you want to add a conversational AI agent, like ask those two, like start, writing profanities or, test the system to see if they have guardrails up and, ask questions like, what's your favorite music, to see how does it respond to that? Like, do actually vet the systems, because we can do it for you as an ATS, and we can say that this is a provider that we believe in. But of course, you can go and buy your own systems. If you are a HR expert, a TA leader, you can go and buy systems. But please make sure that you're actually really testing them. Don't just trust the demo. Don't just go like, oh, this looks cool. This seems to work nicely. Like, test it out. Make sure you feel very comfortable with it, because we need to make sure that those systems work the way they're intended to do, and especially having the guardrails up.
Great, thank you. I'm going to change gears a little bit now, because I think one of the areas that as product leaders we're all obsessed with is adoption. We can build it, but will users actually use it? Yeah. Have you had a time when the kind of user expectation didn't match your perception as to what the reality should be? And kind of what happened? How did you discover it? What did you do about it?
Well, I have two pretty good examples of this. So one is that sometimes when you add new systems, there's a lot of, it can be legal tends to get involved. So if you're adding another sub-processor or you're adding a system that might need certain rights in order to work, legal gets involved. That has been a struggle sometimes, that we haven't thought enough about our communication and maybe documentation to a certain degree. So we're like, oh, this is a great feature. But then you get to this, as I said, our customers are enterprise. And the first question is going to be like, okay, how does it work? And legal is going to be there, or even sometimes IT is there as well. Like, they're vetting it, they're looking at it, and they're saying, no, we can't agree with this. Even though there might be something that actually would work. Sometimes I found that it's more about not the technical aspects always. It could actually just be communication or semantics or rhetorics about how the system works or what it is intended to do can sometimes make or break whether you can pass it through. So that is something that we definitely learned, and trying to get much better with the rollout. So when we do the rollout plan, really consider the legal aspects of doing it, because we need to make sure we have documentation, we have all the answers, we have like a Q&A for legal and IT teams. Like, this is what it means, this is how it works and whatnot. And also doing it together with the partner. So if we bought a system, making sure that, we team up to make sure that this is going to work, so we can get help if we run into these issues, to get help about how can we increase adoption, how do we get past legal, how do we get past IT, for instance.
Right. Yes. Yeah. The kind of the legal boss, the IT boss, and then you get to the user boss
yeah, definitely. And another good example is that we, what I also found is that it's very, very important to align internally about the expectations. What's in scope, what's outside scope when it comes to a product. Because sometimes you can build something, or you buy a system, you buy a tool, and then you build on top of that, and then you create a feature out of it that you ship. But it might be limited. It might be stuff that we need to update. It might be things that we know it's a limited software, or there's limitations regarding the feature. And sometimes we might have sold the vision of it rather than what it really is. And then you have this cascading effect of product telling CS, customer success starts telling the customers, and it gets hyped in every step. It just becomes this bigger and bigger and more fancy thing. So like a schedule becomes a self-scheduler, which becomes an AI self-scheduler. And you go like, hold up a minute, how did you end up here? Like, where in this situation is this an AI thing? And then what happens then? Legal goes like, AI, hold up a minute. And go like, no, it's not AI, it's automation. And they go like, what does automation mean? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh no. Clear lesson, like, what is it? What does it mean? Internal expectations. This is what it is. This is what it's not. And doing that, because otherwise you can also sell an idea of something that customers end up, even if they adopt to it, go like, but you told me it was, whatever, like an AI fantastic tool, but it ended up being, more simple, still really well working tool. And it would have been great within those expectations, but you made these expectations. So communication, key.
Right. I think that could be said for many aspects of life. Fundamentally, what's in my head and getting you to understand what's in your head. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Describe the chair. This is, I guess, one last thing is there I don't know, you've been a product leader for a while now, and especially product leader in SaaS is a very particular set of skills and a particular set of learnings. Especially as you've come from outside, what's the thing that kind of perhaps surprised you, or the bit of advice you wish you'd had when you started down this journey?
Great question. I might not answer your question, but I'm going to give you an answer anyway. If there's one thing that I really feel is so important in this role, is curiosity. I know it sounds so boring to say, but you really need to be curious. You need to be curious about solutions, about new technology, about how things could be done differently. Having that curiosity and way of thinking, which is super important all the time in everything you do. I think it's like everything I do is sort of boils down to me, being curious about our users, about our vision, about our end goal, and sort of getting all of those together to understand where are we heading. And then, of course, we need to start with the users, and then what do they need? Oh, they need this. Oh, what tools are out there, essentially, and then going out and meeting people and doing that. If there's one thing that has surprised me is how, and it goes back to what I said before, how hard it is with communication. I can say something, 3 or 4 times, and I can still get the same question, which is, when is this launching? What is the deadline on this? When will I have it? And I go, as I said so many times before, I can't give you a deadline. We are working on these 3 things, and I can tell you that we're working really hard to get them out. And then I can still get a DM on Slack. It's just like, do we have a deadline for this? And I'm like, as I said, we've been working on it. We are working on it. And I don't know how to get past that.
It's that classic triangle, time, quality, scope, pick 2. Yeah. It's like, yeah. And yeah, it's very, very hard for people, especially if you kind of if the 2 you want to choose are quality and scope, then there comes a point at which,
and me also coming from the customer success management side, like I used to be on the other side. Like I know how frustrating it is. I know it's so hard to hear that we are working on it. We're not working on this, but we're working on this. And then go like, when will you be working on the thing you're not working on? I'm like, I can't tell you that because now we're working on this. And
So what's next for you and your team? What's coming up? What are you excited about?
Well, next year we're really focusing on updating the sort of experience in our platform to make it much more easy to navigate, incorporating a lot of cool and new AI features. And I want to say one thing about AI features that I hate. I think people sprinkle AI on top of a human built process a lot of times and then expect crazy outcomes. What we've been trying to do is actually really think about it as a tool and then saying, where does that fit into our process and how can we use it differently to build a system that really utilizes AI instead of building on top of it? And we're really gonna double down on that next year, and I'm super excited about that. It's all about like making the experience better for the users in the platform, expanding our offering, and adding really nice features that add value.
Sounds good. Yes, I think AI, like this AI sprinkle thing, is definitely, you see this a lot.
Yeah.
But I kind of like to think of it as a very capable intern that sometimes does some random stuff. And so it's how do you kind of incorporate that into your flow to improve the effectiveness of your users, but give them the checks and balances that they would do if they give a kind of 18-year-old work experience person this task.
That just knows a lot of things about a lot of things, but sometimes goes on a rant. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, totally.